Make sure you guys hit the subscribe button if you guys are enjoying the content that we're throwing up. And make sure you guys hit the like button if you enjoy the video. And yeah, let's begin. Okay, so we are getting into the third issue of Thor. And I'm absolutely loving this, right? I'm loving this whole thing with Thor. This story is ridiculously good. It's nuts, right? It's a pretty solid story. So what this does is this initially picks up with Thor God of Thunder and like a bloody hammer, right? So like my first thought, because we left the final, the previous story, we left that with like Beta Ray Bill preparing to go to a conflict with Thor. So my first thought is like, oh my God, Thor killed Beta Ray Bill. That was my first thought. But what this does is it really kind of highlights the nature of Thor. And it's one of these things where it's very easy to lose track, right? Because you see Thor usually fighting alongside like the Avengers, right? Captain America, the Incredible Hulk, and Hawkeye, and Black Widow, and all these different characters. And it's very easy to forget that Thor is a nearly immortal being, right? He has to eat the apples of Adun, so he's not officially immortal. He can die of old age. You know, it's the nature of the beast. But he's exceedingly long-lived. And this is one of the things that Donny Cates really points out, right? He talks about this idea that there are so many unwritten stories about Thor, or so many stories about Thor that we just don't know about because they seemingly pass in the blink of an eye. That in the life of a person who will live thousands and thousands and thousands of years, what could happen over the course of 3 days is in the blink of an eye to them. Donny Cates references the War of Realms and talks about how Thor was in the War of Realms itself, kind of the center of the whole thing, and had been fighting for 2 years. And in his mind, it all happened seemingly in the blink of an eye. Because what's 2 years to a person who's going to live for 2,000 years? It's kind of interesting, you know, with regards to this whole perspective of how Thor sees everything. And it's really just kind of designed to point to this idea that the battle that Thor is about to face, despite all these different battles that he's fought and how forgettable they were, at the end of the day, this is one battle that he's never going to forget. And the reason why is because at this moment, he's facing Beta Ray Bill in Bill's traditional armor. And it's kind of a cool thing, right? Because as soon as this happens, as soon as this opens up, Beta Ray Bill immediately launches an attack against Thor and is swatted away in like the blink of an eye. And it's kind of crazy because this is when we get really kind of a full-on explanation of the total power that Thor has. And it hasn't really been answered up to this point. We've kind of had to make assumptions, but this is the full totality of Thor's power. And he says as much. At the moment right now, he has all the power of a Herald of Galactus, right? So presumably at the higher echelons, with the exception of the Fallen One, there aren't really any heralds out there that I believe are in the same capacity as the Fallen One, because the Fallen One was powered by dark energy. It wasn't like the power cosmic, right? So right now we could argue that Thor's on par with Silver Surfer, if not a little bit higher, with regards to the level of power cosmic that he has. What really beefs him up and what really amplifies him is that in addition to the power cosmic, he also has his strength as Thor, all the abilities that come with it, and they're all amplified by basically having the Thor force, right? Having Thor's equivalent of the Odin force, right? So this is basically an answer to the question, what if Odin became a Herald of Galactus? This is brought to bear when he faces Beta Ray Bill, and Beta Ray Bill is absolutely decimated, right? I mean, literally it's just boom. There's no real fight here. Beta Ray Bill has no real chance in this conflict. And that's what's so wild about this, because then I would ask the question, how does this version of Thor compare to Rune King Thor? Rune King Thor is way beyond Herald of Galactus Thor, right? Like Rune King Thor was a multiversal concept. He was multiversal powerful, right? In terms of all the abilities that he had and the things that he could do and so on and so forth. This version of Thor is nowhere near that level of power, but he's a universal level threat now, right? Like he's universally powerful. That's what makes him so exceedingly capable and why he's able to overcome Beta Ray Bill so fast. And this is one of the funny things that goes on, is that what he basically says is that I chose this power, right? Like this path that I'm on, I chose all this. And it's kind of funny because as soon as that happens, like Galactus immediately makes his move, goes to hit Thor, and the response of Thor is, I took your power, I accepted your power, but I can walk away from your power at any point in time. I do what I do because I choose to. And this kind of makes sense, right? When it comes to the various heralds of Galactus, it's always been that way. It's one of the things that sort of went on, that Galactus always allows a free will to be maintained among his heralds. It's the reason why Silver Surfer was able to leave. It's the reason why you ended up having the Fallen One who tried to rebel against Galactus and was locked away in the kiln. It's why you see these kinds of things, right? Why these various individuals who are bonded with the power cosmic go on to do their own thing. And that's kind of what's going on with Thor here. Now, we can also sort of surmise that a lot of this is the Thor force, right? The ability to kind of overcome that kind of power. Now, the reality is even with the Thor force, Thor's not on the same level as Galactus, right? We even saw that during, I think it was Kieran Gillen's run of Thor. Maybe it was Rick Remender. I don't remember who it was that wrote it, but where you had Galactus, you had Galactus facing off against Odin. You kind of had this telepathic battle that went back and forth between the two of them. And then Odin just like headbutted Galactus and basically fell into the Odin sleep after after that because it required so much energy just to like headbutt Galactus and crack his helmet and so on and so forth. Not even enough to overcome him and overpower him. And so it's kind of cool, right? It's interesting to see that whole thing go down, because what this means is that Thor, even with the power that he has, is still universally powerful, but is able to also maintain his free will and keep himself from being completely and totally controlled by Galactus. But when he makes this statement of, I chose this path, that's when Beta Ray Bill gets pissed. Because up to this point, Beta Ray Bill was kind of under the mindset that Thor was taken by Galactus and made into his herald. And if that was the case, then Thor's will was not his own. So Beta Ray Bill wasn't really fighting out of disgust for Thor, he was fighting out of love for Thor, right? Like, I want to save you from yourself, your will is not your own, I'm going to free you from Galactus's control, and then you and I will team up and probably fight Galactus and, you know, make him run off or something along those lines. But hearing Thor say he chose this, right? He chose to become the Herald of Galactus, lead Galactus to these 5 worlds, and then consume all the life on them. Beta Ray Bill freaks out and immediately starts attacking Thor. And that's when he starts asking these really interesting and really important questions, where Thor responds and basically says, like, did you think it was easy for me, right? Did you really believe it was easy for me to just make this decision and to just go off and become a Herald of Galactus, knowing that I was leading him to worlds that were going to be consumed? Because at that point, it's not a matter of whether they're populated, it's 5 very particular worlds. Those worlds have to be consumed by Galactus. It doesn't matter whether or not they have life on them. But his argument is, there's a more important thing here. This is really just a classic argument of utilitarianism. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. For the people who were on those 5 worlds, those billions of people in total, sorry about your luck. But the survival of the universe is more important than you. And so you're gonna have to die in order for the universe to live. Get out while you can, but that's basically the way the game gets played. It's just the natural order of things. With that being the case, I would kind of look at Beta Ray Bill and say, like, he's basically wrong here. He says, like, you could have come to me, you could have mustered the entire armies of Asgard because you're their king now, but what are the armies of Asgard in the face of a force powerful enough to wipe out entire universes, right? To bring about an end to the universe before this one. What could the Asgardian army possibly do? The Asgardians were basically almost completely and totally wiped out and destroyed by the forces of Loki, Mangog, and like a whole bunch of other dark elves and various enemies and stuff during Ragnarok, right? And they're not even nearly close to being universal level. At the end of the day, it really just kind of looks like Beta Ray Bill is just kind of making excuses. You could have done this and you could have done that. It's like, yeah, but none of that power would have worked. You know, and so it's one of these funny things, because it's basically like Thor kind of keeping this whole thing going and basically says, I do what I do because I'm king, because my job is to protect people. My job is to basically ensure that my people survive. And if that means becoming a Herald of Galactus and then taking him to 5 worlds across the universe and consuming them, destroying them, so that my people and the universe will continue to survive, that's exactly what I will do. That's the smart decision to make, right? It's the right thing to do. And it's kind of crazy because at that moment he throws his hammer at Beta Ray Bill and Beta Ray Bill catches it. Now, this is not new, right? This is the hallmark, and this is why Beta Ray Bill is so popular among the Thor fan base and people in Marvel Comics who know who he is, right? He was the first person to lift the hammer of Thor. So it's not one of these things where Donny Cates is just kind of like throwing it out there. If it was going to be some sort of, oh my God, you won't believe what happened, you know, it'd be a full page splash, right? But it's just a singular panel. But Thor in turn says, let it go. You're like, nothing in the universe can stop my hammer once I recall it to my hand, and I will rip your arm off if I have to. I'm getting my hammer back. The reality of this is, it's kind of looking at Thor, right? It's easy to look at him and see him as a villain, but that's not true, right? Like, Thor's fighting to save his people and the universe's population. Beta Ray Bill's in the wrong here. That's really what it is. And so as he continues, you know, sort of pulling his hammer back, Beta Ray Bill won't let it go. And so Thor's response is, okay, fine, then I'll use a different one. He summons Stormbreaker, brings it to himself, and then shatters Stormbreaker over the hammer of Mjolnir. And then when that happens, Beta Ray Bill basically loses the hammer momentarily, Thor recalls it to himself, and Beta Ray Bill is now weaponless. Beta Ray Bill has no real weapon to use to overpower Thor, right? Stormbreaker was his only real trump card, right? It's like Thor not having Mjolnir. At the end of the day, if Thor is without his hammer, he's just a really strong guy. That's really all it is, right? It's only when he has his hammer that he becomes virtually unstoppable. That's the kind of capability that you're talking about here, right? So that's kind of Beta Ray Bill's equivalent when it comes to Stormbreaker. And so in response to this, Thor looks at Beta Ray Bill as a person who will always be in his way. And that's true, because when it comes to Beta Ray Bill, he's very much like Thor. When he sets his mind on the path of committing an act, nothing will stop him. He will keep coming and coming and coming and coming. He'll keep coming after Thor over and over and over and over again until either he's victorious or he dies. And so that's what Thor realizes, is that Beta Ray Bill is never going to stop. That if Thor lets Beta Ray Bill live, Beta Ray Bill will leave and he'll come back with an army. And if that army's defeated, he'll come back with an even bigger army. And it'll just keep going over and over and over again. And then suddenly it'll be the universe against Thor. If he can even muster enough people to his cause, which I doubt he could, right? You know, like, hey guys, Thor's wanting to wipe out 5 worlds. Well, why does he want to do that, Bill? Because if he doesn't, then like the universe is going to be destroyed destroyed. Okay, well, I don't really see a problem, man. I mean, it sucks that like those 5 worlds are going to be destroyed, but like the population of the universe versus like a few billion people, why is this even a discussion, right? It's one of these funny things. And so in the midst of all that, suddenly the Rainbow Bridge opens up, and out of nowhere comes Sif, the sister of Balder, who took Balder's place as the person who oversees everything. And wielding his sword, which is no small thing, basically says the only way is through. If you want to kill Beta Ray Bill, you have to kill me. Essentially, Thor is being told, you have to kill a woman you were in love with if you want to be able to continue your mission. It's pretty baller. With that being said, guys, we're going to bring this video to an end. If you are new here to Comics Explained, make sure you guys hit the sub button to become part of the Rob Corps. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you drop a like, and I will catch you all later. Peace. Okay, I want to give a shout out to Kyle B, David Joseph, Ben, John H, AJ, Matt N, Jeff R, John H, Lean and Mean, which is an awesome name, Jason C, Austin S, Austin H, Joey M, Steven Z, Austin B, Adam K, and Genosis 916. Remember, guys, you can send me messages and I'll run off whatever your message is at the end of the video, so long as there's nothing crazy. But if you want to put a message in there, send me an email, rob@robertjefferson.com. And if you are one of these people who gets shout outs, then I will tack it in there. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys.